To the school committee meeting for Tuesday, July 19th. Mrs. Pizarski, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Stetson? Yes. Mrs. Boyd? Here. Mrs. Brate?
Here.
Mr. Costello? Mr. Greer?
Will you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Happy summer, everyone. Good to be back here with everybody. Let's just jump right into this informational. Superintendent Granatino.
Just 2 things. A reminder, over the next 3 days, we have our friends from the Marshfield Education Foundation hosting their Circus Smirkus. So there are 2 shows tomorrow, 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. There's 2 shows on Thursday, 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. And actually a show on Friday and Saturday. I apologize. It's 4 days this year, most ever. And on Friday and Saturday, they're both at night, 7 p.m. each night. So again, this is one of their big fundraisers along with their road race. This is their next biggest fundraiser, and it's just a great event. It's a circus that's put on by children, anywhere from 10 to 19 years old, I believe it is, in that range. And these are talented kids from all over New England that come together, and they do a nice job. And it's really a family-friendly event and a great way for the Marshfield Education Foundation to continue to raise funds that will help our teachers as they put in their annual grants each year. So hope that you can make it down there. And I know they've been promoting it a lot around town for the last few weeks, and hopefully they're going to have great attendance. And just a reminder, I guess this is in advance of usually when we say our next meeting is, but just, I know you guys have it in your calendar, but we will be meeting as a group in Cohasset on August 3rd. When we have our leadership retreat. You're not there for the whole retreat, but when we have our meeting on the budget and talking a little bit more about ESSER funding and what we're going to be doing with that, or what we would like to try to do with that, that takes place that Wednesday, August 3rd at 12:45 is when you guys are on for your meeting. So we'll post all of that, but I just want to let folks know that we will be meeting as a group to discuss the financial plan for the FY23 school year. Or actually, it's for the FY24 school year. We're kind of a year in advance putting our budget together. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Dr. Martin.
I have nothing tonight.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right. Any subcommittee reports? No. There's no public participation, so I'm not even going to call for it. No student reps tonight? Okay. Mrs. Marples with our MEA update.
Anyway. Okay. Sarah Marples, President of Marshfield Education Association. I wasn't even going to sit down because I just want to wish everybody a rest of a wonderful summer and just once again remind the school committee that we are asking for their support for what we call the millionaire's tax. I gave you all the paperwork last meeting, and I hope the school committee will move on that like they did the last time this actually got passed before the Supreme Judicial Court knocked it down for language. So we really are looking for support from all the school committees across the state, and I hope this school committee will get on board as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I am going to move the minutes to the end of the meeting, so we'll skip that, and then I'm going to table the social media policy, okay, until the full committee is here. The policy committee hasn't had a chance to meet to follow up on that, so we need to work on that a little bit, and I will bring that back next time. Mary Beth Battis, you are up for our youth risk behavior survey data.
Thank you. I'm Mary Beth Battis, Director of, or Coordinator of Comprehensive Health for the district. So for the past 2 years, we haven't had any data from the Youth Risk Behavior Survey because of COVID. We weren't able to do the survey. And unfortunately, the CDC didn't do the survey either. So tonight I'm going to present to you just some information that we gathered this year without a lot of reference to other points. So this is we've done this for over 20 years. We started in 1996. This was the first time we had a 2-year break. There's 48 questions on our survey. So I think we're going to have to wait another year to see, a year or two, to see if there are trends, what happened during COVID, and what some of those changes were. So I'm going to do a real brief overview. The first one was some of the tobacco and marijuana use. Have you ever vaped? And I think prior to COVID, we were concerned with the number of students vaping. So in 7th grade, 4%. 9th grade, the number in parentheses, it was 54% prior to COVID. So now that decreased, and then the 11th grade decreased from 79%. We have seen a decrease in the number of kids that are vaping. So hopefully that's a positive trend. The numbers for trying marijuana have also decreased for 9th grade and 11th grade. One thing that we might want to look at with our survey is the question is, have you ever tried marijuana? Do we want to add a question, have you ever tried edibles? Have you used edibles on a regular basis? Are our kids reporting edibles versus marijuana? What do they think and believe? So I think that might be something we want to look at and discuss. We do have students talking. Yeah, so the question was, do we have any anecdotal information about kids using edibles? Yes. I mean, and there's more students reporting that marijuana, that edibles, they're not dangerous, that it's not harmful. So I think it's really, that's one of the things that we've been working on with our health curriculum is getting students the reliable information that they need. What is the difference between THC, CBD oil, and all of that? So really providing them with that information and helping them to make the best decisions based on that.
Sorry to interrupt.
No worries. The second one is on alcohol, because this is a big focus of ours. We knew that alcohol was a drug of choice for our kids. So have you ever tried alcohol? It actually increased for our 7th grade. It went up to 22%, and tried for 9th grade decreased. It's been about the same for the 11th grade. And then had 5 or more drinks. So this is one of the data points that we look at to determine if our students are binge drinking or going out to get drunk. And our 9th grade is 12%, and then 11th grade was a great number. It was a big decrease from 58% to 35%. Now, is that a trend that we're going to keep seeing? We obviously don't know. Hopefully it is. Then the last question that I'm adding for you is where the parents, have you been to a party where the parents were present and underage drinking was occurring within the past 30 days? So for our 10th graders, it went up. 9th grade pretty much stayed the same, and 11th grade, 29% stayed about the same. So those numbers, as you can see, some of our numbers, I don't want to say a lot, haven't decreased or haven't increased that significant since COVID. But then we went to safety. So one of the questions that we ask is, do you feel unsafe in school? And those numbers have been very consistent across the past 20 years. 8%, 9th grade, and then 11th grade, 3%, and with 7th grade has stayed the same. But when we look at safety, we look at one of the protective factors for our kids. So is there an adult in the building, or teacher, or any other adult that you can talk to if you have a problem? So we were doing really well with this prior to COVID. Then, so 7th grade decreased. It was 67%, went down to 55%. Our 9th grade stayed pretty much the same, and then there was a decrease from our 11th graders from 81% to 76%. This is one of the data points that I actually, I would hope would increase a lot next year. Because you have to remember, we started last year with masks on, did our kids not feel that connection? So it'll be interesting to see what our students report after next year, and with the focus really on social emotional learning and building relationships with our kids, knowing that that is a priority. The other one that's important as far as safety goes is being bullied on school property, and this number has been consistent. So I think that working again with our 7th grade, with our middle school students on skill-based health education. What skills can you use if you feel that you're being bullied or cyberbullied? How do we deal with that? And continuously work on that, because we know that that's one of the, when somebody reports that they're bullied, it increases their risk of mental health issues or concerns. So the next one is mental health, and I know that everybody has heard that there's a mental health crisis with our students. But according to the Journal of American Medical Association, from 2016 to 2020, there was a significant increase in kids with mental health concerns, students between the ages of 3 and 17. So prior to COVID, we were even seeing this. So prior to COVID, we had actually shifted what we were teaching in middle school and high school, and we've implemented the Signs of Suicide curriculum, the See Something, Say Something curriculum, as well as working with our 9th graders on how do you talk to someone if they're in crisis, and who are the people that you can work with directly in the building. So one of the things that we looked at is, have you felt sad or hopeless? And the question is actually one of the definitions of depression. It's sad or helpless for more than 2 weeks. There was an increase in every single one of our grade levels. So from 7th grade, it increased from 17 to 28%, 9th grade 24 to 35%, and 11th grade from 33 to 40%. I don't think that many of us were surprised by that. The next numbers were surprising. So considered suicide. Considered suicide increased from our 9th graders and with our 11th graders, but the bigger takeaway was our students that created a plan. So students that create a plan to commit suicide actually increase the probability of a successful attempt. And there was an increase with our 11th graders from 9% to 16%. So I think really focusing on mental health, which we have been doing, but even more on skill-based, how do we have our students recognize what is anxiety, what is worry, how do you deal with it, and what are strategies that can really be put into place, and to practice those skills is really where we need our kids to be. I really think that with our elementary health program as well, that's been a huge focus, and we've implemented some great strategies in there. They practice Calm Classroom every single time they have health education, and Amy's done an amazing job with health ed there. So we have health education now in grades 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 11. So this is, again, that elementary health we put into place right as COVID happened, brought it back this past year, added grade 2, and really the focus there is, again, skill-based health education. So those were the questions that I just pulled out for you. All the data is accessible to everybody online, but I hesitate to really make any snap judgments based on what we have. Does anyone have any questions or concerns or thoughts?
Well, I just like to come in, Mary Beth, because it's not easy. Obviously, not having the comparable data is kind of hamstrings us a little bit, and I'm assuming other districts are going to be facing that same situation. But what I like most about what Ms. Battis does with this information is she shares it, she speaks to it, she doesn't try to sugarcoat it. I mean, we have some numbers there that were not positive, that we want to work on. I mean, we're talking about our leadership retreat and plans for the year, and we already had some of these things on our front plate, to work on, and mental health has been a big one that we've spent a lot of time and resources on over the last few years. But obviously COVID, I think, probably had a real big impact on that front. But nonetheless, however it's there, and it's something that we need to address. And I appreciate the fact that you're always there to make sure that our eyes and our hearts are focused on those areas of need, and we don't try to push them to the side and just look at the good stuff, because we need to work on some of the things that aren't as positive. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You do such a good job. I have a question. Do you ever compare data with other districts? This?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Actually, so they're not formally.
Okay.
So informally, the health coordinators from other districts get together and talk about where we are, what we're doing. We're all in the same situation this year. So some districts actually didn't even do the YRBS this year. They're
Okay.
waiting till
Yep.
next year because of the CDC. There's nothing to compare it to.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as the trends that we're seeing, very similar.
Okay.
To other towns.
And do you typically compare with other South Shore towns, or is it all across the state?
We
Is it-
actually compare with the South Shore towns.
Okay.
Across the state, we're looking at so the health frameworks have not been changed since the 1990s.
Okay.
We're hoping that those new frameworks come out, and with the new frameworks is going to bring more of the health coordinators together across the district.
Okay.
To talk about how do we implement these frameworks, how do we use the data to decide where we put different things within our curriculum, what changes need to be made. So hopefully, in the next year, that'll be happening as well.
Okay, and just out of curiosity, so I didn't know that this was related to the CDC. I had no idea.
Yes.
So do you know who, this is a weird question, but do you know who puts that together? Is it educators? Is it health personnel? Is it who develops this?
So the CDC created this survey in the 1990s.
Okay.
There's been a few updates since then, and it's a body of people that they've brought together. There's educators, there's physicians, there's
Probably a board, yeah.
a whole group of people that look at the questions, what new and different questions should we add.
Okay.
Obviously, a question was added about cyberbullying a few years ago. We never had that.
Mm-hmm.
So we've taken some of their questions and used some of their questions. We've also modified one question right now, which is actually two questions. Have you been to a party where the parents were present? And then have you been to a party where the parents were present within the past 30 days? So that's not a CDC question. That was a
Okay.
question we added
Yep.
because other towns on the South Shore had it, and we could look at that data and look at some of theirs.
Okay,
So we continuously, I would tell you, every few years, we take a look at their full survey.
Mm-hmm.
The full survey is about 100 questions. We
Okay.
have 48 questions on ours. And actually, there's two other questions that we added, and that was what causes you the most stress within school and what causes you the most stress outside of school. And I can tell all of you that those data points have not changed. It's time and it's academics. So it's the same thing, so we know that's what's creating stress for our students. Those were questions that came from a leadership retreat years ago that
Okay.
asked, can you please add this to give us more information about it?
yep,
And actually, another shift we made a few years ago was adding, not only is there a person in the building that you have a relationship with, but is there an adult outside of the building that you have a connection to? So there are some students that are never going to have a connection with someone in the building, but we need to know, do you outside of the building?
okay.
So that's something that, and I would really, I think over the next couple of months, look at where is our survey right now? What changes should we make? This is a perfect opportunity for us to shift.
Yeah,
If we're going to
definitely.
shift, it's this year. Again, taking into consideration the amount of time we have kids taking the survey. We don't want them to spend 45 minutes on a survey. They're going to lose focus and
Yep.
whatever.
Yep.
But I think there are some changes we should make.
Okay, and then you said that it's done again in April?
Yes, we do it every May.
Okay.
So we try to do it right around the same time, the beginning of spring, getting students in.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
You guys have any questions, comments? Yep.
I think this is great work as well. So it's really illuminating, I think, to see what's on our students' minds and to see, some of the changes, positive and in a direction that we want to improve. I guess one question I have is related to the mental health, and I'm thinking back to the mental health, sort of the tiered approach to the mental
Yes.
health that so are we tying, that body of work together as we look at these results with the mental
So
health?
when we look at the tiered approach to social emotional learning, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 1 is everything that we do in the classroom. So all of the programs the curriculum that we use in health education is science-based, evidence-based curriculum. All of it is geared around social emotional learning. But so taking the social emotional piece of this, adding it to the research and practicing skills. And that's a big difference than what we did 20 years ago when I taught health education. It's not going in and teaching you that alcohol is bad and here's why. It's how do you make a decision whether to use alcohol or not to use alcohol? How do you make decisions about accessing reliable resources for mental health? Where are those resources? So giving students the skills that they need. And I think we're going to see more of this with the elementary program that we're doing and having them practice calm classroom, dealing with worry and anxiety on a daily basis. How do you do this and how do you practice it?
Yeah.
So yes.
I think that's important, because I think as we look at these results, sort of knowing what we're doing about it, is as important as knowing where we stand.
Yes.
And my other question is related to parents, and how do we think about sharing this information with parents, engaging them to support us, and how we think the best approaches are? Like, how do we sort of engage parents as allies and support in this work?
If I had an answer to that, I would be a multimillionaire. So I will tell you that for years, we did a parent presentation and no one came.
Right.
So what we've done is share it with all of you, put it on our website, and we share it as much as possible with parents. They may not even realize that we're doing it. When we send information home to students, it's on our syllabus. There's different pieces that we pull out and share with our parents.
Yeah. Okay.
So I wish I could give you a better answer.
No,
So
yeah, I think it's just good to think about, is like, how do we, because I think some parents might be surprised at some of these numbers.
Yeah.
And so I think to the extent we can, sort of illuminate and sort of engage them to help us as well, just anything we can think of. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you for all of this. Is there any data collection that we do with older elementary age kids?
No.
Okay.
So the CDC, so the YRBS starts in grade 6.
Okay.
And there's, the reason for that is some of the questions that are on there wouldn't be appropriate for students. We actually looked at different surveys to do with elementary, and that may be something that we look at. I think that tying into the social emotional learning part for the younger students would be very beneficial for us, but that's a different survey.
Okay.
Can you just use the microphone?
Oh, you want this?
Just want to make sure everyone can hear.
So before COVID, we started doing SEL surveys for different grade levels and different levels of students, and we were talking about how to even get our youngest. And that kind of, the surveys stopped during COVID. But what we're planning on doing, we are going to purchase Panorama. So Panorama has ready-made social emotional surveys for all grade levels. So we are purchasing that along with their data package, and that's a whole other thing. But they actually take the data and they will analyze it for us and give us kind of the highlights of what they're seeing. So that's something that we are going to work on this year, is trying to bring those SEL surveys back, just so you know.
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Have a great summer. Thank you.
Thank you. You're up. MHS Music Department, California trip. Tell us about this. Sounds exciting.
Thanks. All right. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for giving me the time to go over this. So I sent the packet. I trust that you've had a chance to look it over. So the very short version, this is just an updated version of a trip that we've done, let's see here, 7, 11, 15, 19, 4 times already, and then I've done 3 times already. That doesn't mean that we should just, we've done it before, so let's do it. But it's something that we know well. I think the most notable difference between this trip and the trip that we did in 2019 is that about 8 years ago, Michael Moresco and Nancy Bowers came to me and they said, look, Dave, we know these trips really well because we've done them. We think we can do a little better and cheaper doing it ourselves. And I said, I think you're right. And so we did the 2017 New York trip and the 2019 California trip without a travel agent. Except in 2019, we did use a travel agent for our flights. And because, I'm here to talk about 2023, not 2019, but I would say we were successful. We got a very high rate of participation in the trip, and I'm proud of the work that we did. I think the big difference this year is that we're working with a new company. We've decided to work with a company called Grand Classroom. We have a rep. His name is Greg Wachtelhausen. He was going to be here last week, but when we moved the date, he couldn't move things around, so he can't be here. But the materials from his company, Grand Classroom, he's sent those, and certainly if there are any questions that I can't answer when we go through our stuff tonight, I can always bring them to Greg, and then, I can represent in August to you, or at any point, to be honest with you. So the reason why we decided to make that change is that, for two reasons. One is that well after the fact, I'm not entirely sure that we saved our students that much money by doing it ourselves. Some of it is that a travel agent can get group discounts that we can't. Some of it is there are things that are just sort of fixed price no matter what. And some of it had to do with the fact that when we actually proposed it, not only to the school committee, but we brought it forth to the kids and their parents in September of 2018, we were in some ways guessing, because there are some things that you can't, there are some things that when you put these trips together that you don't have worked out until literally a couple of weeks beforehand, by the nature of how it's done, and we can get into one of those in a little bit. I would estimate that we actually ended up spending about $1,800 a kid in 2019, but charged $1,600.
Okay.
A lot of that had to do with changes in travel, airline ticket prices from the time that we had to formulate our best guess as to what to charge people, and then when we actually had that. So, going through that experience, I formed a subcommittee, if you will, since you're familiar with that the concept, right? Of my two colleagues in the Marshfield High School Music Department, Nancy, who is still the treasurer up until the end of June, and a couple of parents from the Marshfield Friends of Music Board who were interested in working on the trip. And we basically, it was, are we going to do this ourselves, or are we going to go with somebody? And without bringing you through the whole process, again, except for the handful of parents who'd never done it before, there's a bunch of us who've done this a lot, and we went through everything. And even Nancy Bowers looked and said to everybody, she said, honestly, I think we need to go with the travel agent, because there's really no telling whether or not we're going to save money, and if we do, it's not going to be very much. The second reason that we chose to work with a company is that, coming out of COVID, I haven't done a trip on the other side of COVID, if you will, and this travel agency has done a whole bunch through the pandemic, or, after major restrictions were lifted and whatnot, and are far more well-versed in how to deal with tricky situations if they come up. When you combine those two factors, we just felt like this, and the third factor was I wasn't going to have any parents who were really that experienced. It was just going to be me and my staff who had the experience. So when I added all that up, and really factor number two, which was we probably weren't going to save that much, if anything, when all was said and done. And of course, you can't live in parallel universes like in the Marvel, and actually compare. But I'm pretty confident to say we're probably not, by using a travel agent, we're probably not costing families really very much money. And then, of course, when I brought all this up and said, Greg, we've been silly enough to do this before, he was like, yeah, I get what you're saying, but you do get something for whatever money you spend on our services, and that's true. And I think this year, we need that kind of service from a company. So we went with them because they've come recommended from some other area school systems, some other area school music departments that, at this point, I've been working in Marshfield long enough, so I've built up some connections in the area. So, people's words mean a lot to me and whatnot. And so far, I've been very, very pleased with the service. Like, when we have a question, I get a very thorough answer very quickly. Grand Classroom is a national outfit, whereas the travel agency we've used before, with whom I've been very happy, but they were more of a local outfit. So they have a little bit more resources. So, I'll bring him a question. If he doesn't have the answer, he calls a team in Virginia and they get him like that. So doing it this way means that we, when we say it's $21.50 a kid, that's what they're going to charge us, and it's not going to change, and we can feel confident in that. And I know that the Friends of Music aren't going to lose any money and going to end up subsidizing the trip more than they thought they were going to have to beforehand. So that's where we're sort of at on this. As for the particulars of when we leave and, what happens and stuff like that, I think the biggest thing is that educationally, the focus of the trip is obviously on the music, and that's the other big difference, is that we've always gone and performed on stage, and that's educational in and of itself. And then, as I've said in my packet to you, that, obviously just traveling in a school group is educational in and of itself, of course. We're going to change the performance aspect of the trip. I've had many colleagues throughout the state recommend the soundtrack workshop that Disney does to me. And we've just never done it. It's been running for years, but I've had an increasing number of colleagues in other districts say that they've done it and have been absolutely thrilled. The kids absolutely love it. And it's, my professional opinion is that it seems to me that it would be a more educational experience for the kids, because they're working with a professional. They're going to, be doing that. And honestly, I'm not going to lie, it's also a little easier on me and my staff, because you can basically show up with whoever signs up for the trip. And it doesn't, before we were performing on stage, so I really better make sure we have enough cellos and, all that stuff. Now we can just bring it to our kids, and obviously we'll still hope that as many kids can go as possible. But, if the one and only tuba player in my wind ensemble, I actually have two, but, for the sake of discussion, can't make it, not a big deal. The way that they do it is whoever's there, that's who they work with. They work with them for a couple of minutes, determine what their, ability level is, then put music out that they know, and then they can work with them. And then it's direct feedback from somebody who's not us, So we're really excited about that portion of the trip. So those are the biggest differences between the trips to California that we've done in the past and this one. I have already applied to Disney. We are accepted. One thing that is going to keep us from getting a lot of the super fine details done in terms of timing is that Disney really doesn't tell you when each group's workshop is going to be until literally about 6 weeks beforehand. Oh, wow. So, we can book the planes, we can book the hotel, we can book a few other things, and then there are other things that really we'll have to make tentative bookings for, and then when they say this is your day in Disney. So I've told them our preference is Friday the 14th of April. As you saw in the packet, normally leave very early on the morning of Thursday the 13th of 2023, April 2023. And then usually we get there, and then we like to perform on Friday. Sometimes they've moved us a day or two. And then the trip would, we usually like to do 2 days at the Disney parks, because 3 hours of their time will be taken up in Disney with their workshop beforehand, doing the hour-and-a-half workshop, and then sort of, getting out and stuff like that, and whatnot. So it's really more like, it's a little more than a day and a half, but you get the idea. Now, Disney in California is quite a bit smaller than Disney in Florida, so we've got enough experience to know that a day and a half or more than a day and a half is actually enough for Disneyland, which is about the size of the Magic Kingdom and their California Adventure Park. Then we do another full day in Universal. And then the only other thing that's really sort of that we'll book for a particular time is we've the past I want to say 2 trips. We've switched to doing the Grammy Museum, which is educational, and honestly, the kids are very engaged. It's not a long time. We spend maybe an hour and a half there, but the engagement level is like really high there. Then a lot of the other stuff is, I don't want to say free, but, you know, go to Huntington Beach, you know, shop around at, you know, Santa Monica and stuff like that. And then, as usual, the Friends of Music is planning to subsidize 2 of the meals. One thing that's different about this is that included in that $21.50 is that we'll have all 3 meals all of those days taken care of. The only exception would be that Tuesday that we come home. Typically what we do is we take a red eye back on Monday, which would be the 17th, and then we'd get back in the morning of Tuesday, the 18th of April. And then we've always gotten back about, you know, say 10, 11 or something like that with the buses back at the high school. Now, whether or not the particulars of that will change a little bit with a new travel agent and stuff like that, but that's you know, still the skeleton of what we're looking to do. So, yeah.
That's great. I think that sounds awesome. It's very clear that you've put a lot of time and effort into the planning. I'm excited for you guys. I think that's great. We say every time that we're happy that trips are back and that students get these opportunities, and we're lucky to have educators like you that put so much time and effort and want to make this a great experience for the kids. I can guarantee it'll be something that they remember forever when they go. Did you guys have any comments, questions? No? Okay. Are we looking for a vote on this, or are you going to come back when there's more particulars? What do you want to do here?
Typically vote, you know, the big picture that we're approving the trip. Some of those details may change between now and, you know, takeoff time, but if there's anything major that changes, you know, they usually report back to us. But this allows him to now go out and, you know, work with the parents, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of, you know, fundraising efforts and whatnot, and giving the kids something.
Yeah, and if I could, I've done this before in 2 readings, and I've done it in 1 reading. It's really up to your discretion.
Yeah.
As I said, really, the fine details couldn't be presented to you until a month beforehand. So, I'll be around in August. So if you want me to come back in August, I'm happy to give you my time. But if you want to vote on it with the 3 of you, I'm happy to
Nope,
accept
I am
that as well.
confident that you are able to figure out those fine details without approval from us. So do we have a motion to approve this California trip for April 2023?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks so
Have a great
much.
time.
Appreciate it. Yep. Thanks.
Okay, I think, Mr. Granatino, are you going to take these, the next, okay, yep.
It said English books, but these are world history books at the high school. Some are world, some are American history books, I believe, that are old and outdated. I think the publication dates range from 1993, 2001, and 2004. So we're updating these books. We have updated many of these books and are looking to declare these other books obsolete. And we just need a vote of the committee for that.
Okay, so motion to declare these books as surplus.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to substitute rates.
And this, again, usually Mr. Miller would be the one presenting this. He's under the weather right now, so he's not with us. But, and if you want to hold off for a full vote in August, if everyone's going to be here, then feel free. Tom said it was not time sensitive. But mainly with some of our sub-rates, our ESP sub-rates are tutors, library ESPs, substitute bus attendants, cafeteria workers, and sub-secretaries. We're trying to bump their rate up a little bit. It is currently at a rate that would be commensurate with what minimum wage would be as of January 1st, 2023. We wanted to bring it up a little bit more than that, though, just to make it a little bit more enticing. So it was simply a $1 increase for those groups to go from $15 to $16 an hour when they come in and sub for us. And we're fortunate we have great people that come in and fill those spots, and some of them are here a lot, you know, and some of them end up becoming full-time employees with us. So this is minor increase. Tom said that the increase would be about $7,500 annually for an overall budget impact. And I think it puts us in a better standing too in case they're looking at other districts. If there's a sub opportunity, this puts us in a better position to compete with them. Okay, so we can treat this as a first read unless you guys feel comfortable moving forward with it.
I just have one question.
Yep.
Do you know offhand what the substitute teacher rate is?
It had bumped up, I believe, it's $125 per day now.
Oh, $125 per day. Thank you.
Yeah.
No, I see. I'm fine.
All right, so why don't we just... What do you guys want to do? Do you have
I'm
a
fine to
preference?
vote.
Are you fine to vote it? Okay. All right, so motion to approve the increased substitute rates.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you. Okay, and then it looks like we have facility rental rates.
Yeah, and again, this is a little bit more intricate. And if you want to take a look at it this time and vote it in August, that's fine too. This would take effect starting in September. We have a couple different rates for mainly for youth groups, for not-for-profit groups, changing the rates a little bit. Some of these changes for the custodial fees are tied into contractual changes that occurred this year with their new contract. We also had ServSafe, or our folks who work on cafeterias or any food events that take place, whether in school or in the facilities outside of school, our stadium, as well as stage manager and sound technicians for our events that take place at the in the auditoriums. There's some minor bumps. So for the increase in hourly rate for rental of the single gyms, the all-purpose room, and the cafeterias, from $5 an hour to $10 an hour for our Marshfield youth groups, and from 10 to 20 for our nonprofit groups. That was the first phase of this increase. Increase in custodial fees from $55 an hour to $70 an hour on Sundays and holidays to cover the rates that are in the custodian contract, and then the increasing of the ServSafe certified MPSD staff members to $55 an hour to cover rates of food service contract, as well as the final one is going from $30 to $35 an hour for our folks who run the auditoriums during shows, sound technician, lighting operators, and AV monitors. So Tom had within the folder kind of gave a comparison of what it looks like now and then what it would look like with these changes moving forward. But again, there's a few more moving parts there. I'm fine waiting if you guys want to take a look at that. And then we can come back and vote that in August if you're more comfortable.
Okay, yeah, I actually have a few questions.
Okay.
Follow up with Tom.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have any questions between now and then, feel free to send them our way, and we'll be able to move on quicker, and then we can do the second read in August.
Okay.
All right?
You guys okay with that? Okay. All right, great. So we have one set of minutes from June 21st. Take a look at those. I have them here somewhere. Here they are. Guys all set?
Motion to approve the minutes of the June 21st school committee meeting?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, great. All right, and it looks like we have executive session? Okay. So you might need to help me with this wording. Is it to motion to executive session, not to return to public session? Okay. And is that a roll call? Right.
Ms. Stetson?
Yes.
Ms. Boyd?
Yes.
Mrs. Brady?
Yes. Oh, thank you very much. Have a great night.